There's a lot to unpack, besties, so get ready. Hello, my fellow warriors! Hope you're doing well. Before we continue, I'd like to point out that the war in Ukraine is far from over, and we still need your help. Mom and her team are currently in Ukraine and are personally providing life-saving equipment to civilians and the territorial defense. And right now, we are in a dire need for a drone. Specifically, the DJI Mavic 3 or DJI Mavic 3 Fly More combo. If you have one and would like to give it to us, I'll leave an email where you can contact me. And if you don't, please consider donating a small sum so we can afford it ourselves. Thanks so much, and ¡Ďaďaká Ukrajině! The Star Guardian event was one of the most anticipated events of the year, even though some might disagree, which I get. It's a very niche universe that is usually mostly celebrated by people who enjoy aesthetic pastel gamer setup videos and anime. But with the addition of some of our favorite characters and the absolute thirst trap that is Teacher Morgana, the niche grew exponentially. Now, I know that many of you are disappointed with how it ended, but let's rewind a little bit and remember how it started. We're going to start a couple of weeks before the major event itself, when Sessions 𝗨𝘨 started getting teased. I personally was super hyped because first of all, we got 𝗨𝘨, second of all, we got another Sessions by the Right Music team, and third of all, we got 𝗂𝗵𝘚𝘀. Personally, I think that 𝗂𝗵𝘚𝘀 was their strongest sell point because I wanted to be there and dance with him, which is exactly what my ADHD made me do. So already we're at a great start. The Sessions playlist was an absolute banger and I loved every single minute of the retro electronic disco dance house vibes, which is very different from our previous Vi and Diana projects. It's always nice when Riot gets to experiment with new things, and as someone who listens to everything, yes, everything, I'm glad I get to go through the different projects every year, especially when it comes to those big, voluptuous and thick cinematics. Porter Robinson, which you'd recognize from other animated music projects that gave you emotional damage, was an amazing addition to the League music roster, because sobbing uncontrollably is not something I thought I'm gonna do again since that one time 𝗹𝘀𝘀 and 𝗨𝘚 permanently omnitrixed into 𝗲𝘂𝘀. So by now we've got music, we've got mad aesthetics, we got a cinematic, and the event didn't even start yet. But when it did, it hit hard. We got a full-on animated visual novel, champion interactions, saucy lore tidbits, and of course, skins. The skins themselves were absolutely amazing, and my personal favorites were obviously Fiddlesticks and Morgana. The others weren't really my thing because it doesn't speak to my personal taste, but they all looked absolutely stunning. If you followed me through the event, you know that Riot started a new project where us LPP members got to benefit from affiliate links. Due to the war in Ukraine, I dedicated my skin revenue for humanitarian aid in Ukraine, and although I received only 5 to 10% of the revenue, it was still a nice way to jumpstart something that could really support us creators in the future. Many of you were also outraged and disappointed on my behalf because the revenue was pretty low, so honestly, I appreciate it. But I spoke to management, and after about an hour-long meeting, lessons were learned and changes probably gonna happen in the future. Overall, I had a very positive experience with it and would definitely want it to become something permanent. Now, let's rock and lore! All rights reserved to me. Yeah, I know, that's t-shirt worthy. Incoming merch in 3, 2, 1. No, just kidding. I have drones to buy. But hey, if you want any merch, let me know and I'll see what I can do. But that will come much later in the future. 4 chapters with 3 acts in each chapter, character interactions, vlog, a comic series, mini mobile game, a bunch of free rewards, and grinding. So much fucking grinding. Now hear me out. I'm down for hours of lore content, but what I'm not down for is dividing the content into 2 different platforms and forcing us to play Wild Rift for an average of 30 fucking hours. Because you knew full well that all we wanted was 𝗂𝗧 and Rakan. Don't believe me? Let me channel my teacher Morgana and break it down for you.
Ara, my little children. Today I'm going to teach you how Riot decided to milk us dry. So we've got 5 chapters, which is 10 games per chapter, and that's about 50 games. A game in average is 30 minutes per gameplay, which equals to 25 hours. Now Wild Rift took me 69 games. That's about 20 minutes per game, which equals to about 23 hours in total. And that's just to unlock the story. I obviously kept playing, managed to complete only 3 of the character missions, because I was too frustrated to continue. And to be completely honest, don't have time for that.
No, because I don't think you realize that not all of us have summer vacations with nothing better to do. I had streams to run, videos to edit, meetings to attend, photo shoots to model, bullet vests to buy. Like, think of your older players as well. We walked so you could run. Now, content-wise, I feel like Wild Rift did a better job in terms of giving us a more immersive experience. We had mini boss fights in between every story with a comic and vlog to follow. Mini games that included familiars which you could switch out for others and collect cute little trinkets, familiar icons, and borders. Just the overall flow of the event was very fun and unique, and even the characters were portrayed in a really fun and authentic way. Like, for once, Seraphine didn't piss me off and added a lot to the roster. Oriana was an absolute savage, which I love to see, and Senna had an amazing chemistry with Xayah. The story wasn't as intricate and complex as the one we had on the PC version, but it was a lot more than just playing a PvP and calling it a day. Now look, I understand that our Lord and Savior, Rowan Latency, who used to be in charge of all of our favorite game modes, is now in charge of Riot Forge, where him and his current team are busy giving us full games and not just minimaps, like Ruin King, Hextech Mayhem, and soon to be released Song of Nunu and Convergence. But the community is clearly in a dire need of a fucking palate cleanser that is not just PvP. I literally was so frustrated with League that I pivoted to Wild Rift just so I could experience something different, which says a lot about League and what's Riot's priorities. After all, the gameplay, ranking system, and overall using experience on Wild Rift is 100 times better than the one we currently have on League. And it's not surprising because Wild Rift so far generated $500 million globally in the past 2 years of its existence. Though the event itself did amazing at the very beginning, but towards the end of it, that's when the bugs started popping off. And it wasn't like a 2-day delay, it was weeks. There was no communication, not even when I was privately messaging and asking about it. And so we just sat there, wondering whether or not we'll be able to progress the game or lose everything that we have basically worked for. Eventually, it was so bad that Riot were forced to just unlock all the content and extend the event by another week so people could finish the grind. I guess in a couple of months, a dev blog will be released that would explain us exactly what was it that ruined the event, but at least this time, it wasn't the lore. If you're not familiar with the Star Guardian lore, I strongly suggest you check out my previous video where I basically TLDR'd the entire thing before the event, because right now we'll be covering what happened during the event. The story is divided into two parts. The first one following Kai'Sa and Akali's team, who had decided to group up right after Zoe was defeated the year before, and the second part following Xayah's team, who she built for the sole purpose of finding Rakan and saving him from the darkness he consumed out of her. Kai'Sa's biggest struggle is no different from Lex's, as it is basically teenagehood. So although the girls in Echo are all superheroes, they are still just teens. Teens who have trash communication skills, different priorities, and shitload of angst. Like, imagine instead of going to therapy, you become a superhero. Kai'Sa wants to protect everyone, which is why she gets them all to train all the time. Mom and Morgana shows up with Fiddlesticks and her minions. The team defeats the minions, but that doesn't stop Fiddlesticks from Vecnaing his way into Akali's dreams. Akali starts growing paranoid and realizes that it's only a matter of time until he fully corrupts her. And Kai'Sa is also stressing out about it, which is why she agrees to meet up with Syndra and Zoe in secret when they call her on the phone? Apparently, Zoe and Syndra know one another, and their 1v1 from the previous story is not just a coincidence. Syndra is OP because she was one of the OG Star Guardians, just like Zoe, and the two decided to put their differences aside and come together to defeat Fiddlesticks, who's apparently one of their old teammates. But to do that, they need a larger team, which is why they reached out to Kai'Sa. Fun fact, but their original team consisted of Gwen, Zoe, Harp, Syndra, and wait for it, Akshan. Yes, Akshan was also in fact a Star Guardian, and if he doesn't get a cameo in the next Star Guardian season where he's wearing cute little spandex, I'll riot. Gwen was briefly mentioned in the PC version, but it was in Legends of Runeterra where we learned that she was trapped in outer space and rescued by Soraka, Lulu, and Jinx after Zoe lost her chid due to Harp's corruption and transformed her into an unliving doll. Unfortunately, neither Janna, Poppy, or Lox were part of Gwen's rescue, so we don't really know what happened to them. So Kai'Sa ends up meeting with them, even though she's not really happy about it, but she's still willing to join forces. Mind you, that she didn't even discuss it with her team, and or told anything about it to her co-captain, aka Akali. So naturally, when Akali learns about it, she's absolutely fucking livid, because it makes absolutely no fucking sense that it will work with Zoe. The same Zoe who destroyed half of the city, killed thousands of people, and traumatized many others. I mean, Sona has literal PTSD PTSD and gets panic attacks in crowded places. 𝗬𝗨 has zero confidence in school and pretends like she's someone who she's not. And 𝗬𝗀 became obsessed with trying to go back in time and prevent the past after his best friend 𝗧𝗪 became paralyzed by saving Sona. Yes, 𝗧𝗪 made a cameo in the Star Guardian universe, and has been canonized as yet another sacrificial lamb for 𝗵𝗀𝘀 character development. 𝗘𝙬𝘳's only response to 𝗵𝗪𝐼 is basically, they're not happy about it. But eventually they do team up with Zoe and manage to defeat 𝗵𝗀𝘧, who is technically a girl named Harp, who met her Star Guardian doom of burning too brightly. Zoe then has an emotional moment with her where she literally sobs and begs her not to go, but Harp thanks her for cleansing her soul and vanishes into the light. Which is when Zoe goes full tsundere and doesn't kill the Star Guardians as a form of gratitude. See, everything was fine up until the point where they decided to work with Zoe, because I find it absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't understand the point of bringing Zoe to fight among them when a second ago she obliterated their entire town and was the reason why Rakan almost died. Like, yeah, Akali called 𝗘𝗧 out on it and how fucked up it all was that she even considered it, but then her and the team still joined forces with them. Like, what? That story's conclusion was perfect as is. Rakan sacrificed himself to defeat Zoe. The end. They could have easily just added Gwen or Akshan onto the roster instead. I mean, 𝗵𝗀𝘧 technically died, then why can't Zoe? Yes, Zoe was written perfectly and shined brighter than God-Fist lee-sin, but adding her to the story was completely unnecessary, and it's unfortunate because it was doing so well. They were whiny and annoying because they were teenagers, but they all struggled with things in different ways, which you could learn more through the champion interactions. Sona by far was the greatest of them all because she fought through her trauma and didn't let it define her. To have Zoe back pretty much shits on all of the character development. And no, the little excuse of why she didn't actually die is not gonna cut it. In the second arc of the story, 𝗵𝗀𝘧's demise is not the end of Morgana's grand plan of world destruction, or Akali's nightmares, which is why Morgana seeks her out and seduces her to join the dark side. I'm using the word seduces because she doesn't really do anything besides calling her a silly girl and ara-araing her way into her mind, without knowing that Akali has a secret of her own. You see, after they cleanse Harp, Neela shows up out of fucking nowhere because Lux asked her to. Apparently Lux is not dead, nor was she frozen into a statue, but we don't know where she is. All we know is that her team is somewhere in outer space and that she's been communicating with Neela, who she asked to train the new generation of Star Guardians. Akali ends up joining Morgana, who told her that to stop the darkness she has to end the Star Guardian cycle, which Akali agreed to. What Morgana didn't know is that as an inner demon expert, Neela was already helping Akali and turning her into a double agent who collected enough info for the whole team to use for a trap and destroy Morgana for good, resulting in a good ending and a super epic anime battle. Meanwhile, Xayah, who created her own team, is hunting down Rakan and failing remarkably, which is why Ahri and MF show up to help them, since they were the reason why they got corrupted in the first place. What I don't understand is where the fuck is Nico? I mean, yes, Ahri and MF were the ones Xayah remembered the most, but Nico went into hiding and was later saved by Ahri from being corrupted as well. Xayah had a full-blown meltdown when she found out Nico was alive during the time they were left behind. So why isn't she there to fix things with the others? I mean, she had a clear role in the story and she was in a whole-ass cinematic. She deserved that spot more than anyone else, so I really don't understand the point of excluding her. Anyway, long story short, besides them having a really great dynamic, all they really did was argue and fight monsters, until Xayah decided that to truly save Rakan, she just had to accept the darkness within herself. So she locked herself away with him, called him her princess as he once did before, unleashed the power of true love, thus concluding that darkness is not so bad and that she probably pegs. Besides the incredible and stunning art, I absolutely love the writing of the characters within the comic and think that they have done a remarkable job of capturing their personalities. And so, after both teams defeated their struggles, they met up for a cute Christmas hangout and got to know one another. They ate food, had some drinks, until 𝗘𝗧 got a terrible headache that dragged her into some sort of trance. There, a voice told her that its cycle cannot be broken, and that just because she killed its servants doesn't mean she killed its children, and that they will descend upon the universe and consume everything, which means the Dark Light is connected to the Dark Star, and her children might be the many champions that we've already familiar with. During the Dark Star event, Lux was chosen by the Cosmic Court to stop 𝗨𝘓. The Cosmic Court consisted of Yi, Kassadin, Shinzao, Xayah, Rakan, Lulu, Lux, and their queen, Ashe. Jin and Mordekaiser were also part of it, but both fell to darkness, as well as Lux. Lux was actually born with darkness within herself, and 𝗨𝘓 knew exactly what to say to her to get her to join him in the dark side. Struggle all you want, little light, but you belong to the Dark Star. Do not fear the end, Lux. Embrace it. Embrace me. Can you blame her? Bitch, if 𝗨𝘓 was whispering sweet nothings into my ears, my knees would also buckle. Also, on top of that, she then, after like accepting darkness, became a fucking queen. I honestly wish this Lux was the canon Lux because of how badass she is. So here's my question though. Is that where Lux truly disappeared to, or is this happening in like an alternate dimension? Because the problem of the Star Guardian and Dark Star worlds colliding means that Odyssey also clashes into it. Because Dark Star 𝗨𝘀 is part of Odyssey Kane, which means Jinx, Sona, and Malphite are also somewhat a part of it all, even though they're already part of the other universes. You understand now why this video took me so long to make? I guess a way to maneuver this entire story would be to point out that it all happens in alternate universes, but I'm not high enough to figure this out. I guess eventually when we'll have more information about the Dark Star universe, I'll make a whole video about it. Now, I didn't really talk much about 𝗟𝗏 and Quinn because they didn't really have much of a role in the story. Like, all we learned from their interaction is that 𝗟𝗏 comes from an abusive family and Quinn has a pet bird. 𝗟𝗏 had a great personality in there and added some of that needed teenage weeb energy, but they didn't really play any important role to really have an impact within the story. Neela, on the other hand, was fitted perfectly because my first reaction to seeing her in this event was, what's a grown-ass adult doing with all these teens? Having her act as a mentor was a genius idea, but I feel if Akshan was in there as well somehow, they could have had like the best fucking interactions. Overall, I had an amazing experience during this event, besides the technical difficulties part and the part where they excluded the most important teammate ever. I'm happy that compared to last year, this year somewhat kept the serious tone they set in the short story, and not mad that some of it was also lighthearted. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm quite nervous about the Darken and Void events that are cooking up for next year, because the lore of these two is extremely fucking dark, and we haven't really received any dark themed events since probably 2015 with the Bilgewater one. I mean, Shadow Isles was supposed to be the big dark event of the century, but we all know how that fucking ended. If they're gonna go for another visual novel, I'm just personally going to be bored as fuck. And if they'll try to light it up and create yet another bootlegged Avenger moment with removing the key characters from the story and changing them up for popular characters, they'll be in for another shitstorm from the community. Because Darken mains know their fucking lore and will choose violence if you fuck it up. So let us all wish for good tidings. But yeah, guys, that's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for the algorithm gods. And if you'd like to support the channel, I'd much rather you help us get that fucking drone that we need so much. So please, if you can donate to us and or just purchase the drone for us, that would be amazing. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.
Bonjour.